Hello. Recently, What Car journalists reviewed the electric Mini versus the petrol Mini to find out which was cheaper, and I'm going to review their review. Hello friends, my name's Nigel. Welcome to the Nigel and Jennifer channel. Do hope you can subscribe and like, and that would be very much appreciated. So What Car did start off by saying that they think the petrol car is going to work out cheaper than the electric car on their 279-mile road trip. And it did make me wonder if, as with their previous videos they've done, comparing electric vehicles to petrol, that they were expecting the same result as before. They tested a £40,000 Mini EV compared to £33,000 for the petrol version. The electric version Mini had a 260-mile range, but it did not achieve that on their road tests. They thought the round touchscreen dashboard was extremely poor and the seating not very comfortable. They did say the interior was a backward step, but not the worst interior car they've ever seen. They drove from London to Birmingham and then back again, a total of 279 miles. They were impressed with the comfort of the Mini driving around the city. The electric Mini was built in Oxford, and I must be honest, 3 years ago when I bought my Tesla, I was very, very interested in buying the Mini, but it just didn't have the range. And also the Nissan Leaf built in the UK, I wanted to be patriotic and buy British, but it just didn't have the range, so I ended up buying a Tesla Model 3 built in China. Now currently the electric Mini is built in China, but they say from the year 2026 it will return to Oxford. Well, that's a very odd statement. Obviously a lot more manufacturers are going to have cars built in China and Mexico, South Korea, and that's the way things are going because it's cheaper. So I'm a bit surprised at that statement that the Mini will return to Oxford in 2026, and we'll see if that actually happens. So the electric Mini has a small boot. It could only hold 2 cases, where the petrol Mini, it could hold 3. Obviously the room that the battery takes up. And there was nowhere for the EV cable to go. Now the electric version had a little bit more headroom if you sat in the back, but no more legroom, and neither was really any good for sitting in the back of the car. The driver of the EV could not charge where he was staying overnight, so went to an Instavolt public charger in the morning. The first charger he went to wasn't working. It was undergoing maintenance, so they had to go to a second charger. And you often find this for people with EVs, non-Teslas say they're not working. That's not an EV problem, that's a public charger problem. So they paid 85p a kilowatt hour. It took 23 minutes to get a 60% charge. On the way to Birmingham from London, they drove on motorways and returned on country roads. The EV has go-kart mode, but the car drives nothing like one, the presenters said. The electric car is heavier. So they compared the Mini Cooper S Sport Petrol Level 2 to a Mini Cooper SE Sport Level 2 electric vehicle. The petrol Mini costs £33,050 and the electric Mini costs £40,000. Petrol Mini did 30 miles per gallon, that's terrible. And the cost of filling up at the motorway services costs £71.67. Now the average price for petrol at the moment, it would have cost £60.46 for a 279-mile trip. The electric Mini averaged 3.5 miles a kilowatt hour. Now my Tesla Model 3, which is much bigger car, averages 4.2 miles a kilowatt hour, is a much better car. And listening to reviews of Tesla Model 3 versus Mini, I think the majority are in favour of the Tesla Model 3. They said it was less than petrol at motorway services for charging the EV, but more than average price of petrol. And of course, most people don't charge on motorway services. They then compared charging at home at 22.4p a kilowatt hour, reducing the price to £33, a big improvement. They did then say that if you charged at home at 7p a kilowatt hour, it would reduce the price to only £25. And this is where they got their sums desperately wrong. Look, 22.4p a kilowatt hour costs £33. So instead of £25 charging at 7p, it should be at least 1/3 of that number. So their numbers are well out. They got their sums extremely wrong. The 7p overnight charging would cost a lot less than £10 for the trip. They worked out that a 36,000 miles in a petrol Mini over 3 years would cost £7,782 in fuel. Now, the electric Mini charging at home at the daytime rate would only cost £2,304. They did not show the nighttime rate, because if you can charge at home, why would you not charge at the nighttime rate? It's anywhere between 7p and 8p kilowatt hour. And that would be the third of the cost of EV charging at home, and only about £800 according to my own calculations. On the subject of depreciation, they expected the electric car to depreciate more than the petrol Mini, but they did admit there was a lot of guesswork in those figures. Insurance was the same. Servicing of the petrol car was £1,400 compared to £800 for the EV. They concluded over 3 years the electric Mini was more expensive and would cost £24,488, and the petrol Mini was cheaper at £22,928. They did say that using the overnight charging would make it cheaper. Alternatively, using the expensive public chargers would make it more expensive, which is true. They then went on to say that a PCP contract hire for the Mini EV is £449 a month compared to £389 a month for a petrol Mini. They did conclude at the end the electric Mini is the way to go and a better car, which surprised me because historically what car have appeared to me to be a little bit anti-EV, always charging at the most expensive public chargers. So my conclusion of this is, what car comparison of the EV compared to a petrol car, they're getting better than they used to be. I was reading what car back in the 70s, but I don't read it anymore. I was looking to buy an EV 3 years ago, wanted to buy British very much, but sadly the Mini just didn't have the range, and neither did the Nissan Leaf, so I ended up buying a Tesla Model 3. I'm glad I did, and it is a far superior car, driving all over UK, Portugal and Spain. I drove a lot in the RAF. I did drive Minis a lot, mini cars, minivans, as well as the very heavy aircraft loading equipment. So I've done my fair share in a Mini, never owned one. Had a Hillman Imp was the closest, and then those days, back in the day, it was if you were an Imp driver or a Mini driver. But it's a great car, and I drove many of them all over Oxfordshire and London when I was in the RAF, and that was great fun. And of course the Mini was a good looking car when the retro version came out in 2000, and it hasn't really changed much 25 years later. I don't know what it's like to own one for 3 years, but I do know what it's like to own and live with a Tesla Model 3. It's a fantastic car. It's much bigger, it's much more economical, and it costs less than an electric Mini. So comparing the electric Mini with the petrol version, I'm not sure is that very helpful, because the electric Mini doesn't appear very high on the top selling electric vehicles list. If you are thinking of buying a Tesla, please use my referral code down in the comments or on the screen, and you will save yourself £1,000. And it has the great supercharging network at half the price of a lot of the prices quoted here in the What Car review at 85p. They do vary depending on the time of day, but in the region of 40p a kilowatt hour, much less than the price you pay at some of the public chargers. Now, if you can't afford a new Tesla, I would recommend you buy a used one. There are many good ones for sale in the region of £15,000 and upwards. I wish 3 years ago they were only that price used, as I definitely would have bought one. my Tesla is the only new car I've ever bought. So thanks very much for watching. I do hope you can subscribe and like, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to take your reusable coffee mug wherever you go. Drive safely. See you soon. Bye.